Part 5, Chapter 1. Princess Sherbatskaya considered that it was out of the question for the wedding to take place before Lent, just 5 weeks off, since not half the trousseau could possibly be ready by that time. But she could not but agree with Levin that to fix it for after Lent would be putting it off too late, as an old aunt of Prince Sherbatsky's was seriously ill and might die, and then the mourning would delay the wedding still longer. And therefore, deciding to divide the trousseau into 2 parts, a larger and smaller trousseau, the princess consented to have the wedding before Lent. She determined that she would get the smaller part of the trousseau all ready now, and the larger part should be made later, and she was much vexed with Levin because he was incapable of giving her a serious answer to the question whether he agreed to the arrangement or not. The arrangement was the more suitable as, immediately after the wedding, the young people were to go to the country, where the more important part of the trousseau would not be wanted. Levin still continued in the same delirious condition in which it seemed to him that he and his happiness constituted the chief and sole aim of all existence, and that he need not now think or care about anything, that everything was being done and would be done for him by others. He had not even plans and aims for the future. He left its arrangement to others, knowing that everything would be delightful. His brothers Sergei Ivanovitch, Stepan Arkadyevitch, and the princess guided him in doing what he had to do. All he did was to agree entirely with everything suggested to him. His brother raised money for him. The princess advised him to leave Moscow after the wedding. Stepan Arkadyevitch advised him to go abroad. He agreed to everything. "Do what you choose. If it amuses you, I'm happy, and my happiness can be no greater and no less for anything you do," he thought. When he told Kitty of Stepan Arkadyevitch's advice that they should go abroad, he was much surprised that she did not agree to this, and had some definite requirements of her own in regard to their future. She knew Levin had work he loved in the country. She did not, as he saw, understand this work. She did not even care to understand it, but that did not prevent her from regarding it as a matter of great importance. And then she knew their home would be in the country, and she wanted to go, not abroad, where she was not going to live, but to the place where their home would be. This definitely expressed purpose astonished Levin. But since he did not care either way, he immediately asked Stepan Arkadyevitch, as though it were his duty, to go down to the country and to arrange everything there to the best of his ability, with the taste of which he had so much. "But I say," Stepan Arkadyevitch said to him one day after he had come back from the country, where he had got everything ready for the young couple's arrival, "have you a certificate of having been at confession?" "No. What of it?" "You can't be married without it." "Aye," cried Levin. "Why, I believe it's 9 years since I've had the sacrament. I never thought of it." "Well, aren't you a pretty fellow?" said Stepan Arkadyevitch, laughing. "And you call me a nihilist. Well, this won't do, you know. You must take the sacrament." "When? There are only 4 days left now." Stepan Arkadyevitch arranged this also, and Levin had to go to confession. To Levin, as to any unbeliever who respects the belief of others, it was exceedingly disagreeable to be present at and take part in church ceremonies. At this moment, in his present softened state of feeling sensitive to everything, this inevitable act of hypocrisy was not merely painful to Levin, it seemed to him utterly impossible. Now, in the heyday of his highest glory, his fullest flower, he would have to be a liar or a scoffer. He felt incapable of being either. For though he repeatedly plied Stepan Arkadyevitch with questions as to the possibility of obtaining a certificate without actually communicating, Stepan Arkadyevitch maintained that it was out of the question. Besides, what is it to you, 2 days? And he's an awfully nice, clever old fellow. He'll pull the tooth for you gently. You won't notice it. Standing at the first litany, Levin attempted to revive in himself his youthful recollections of the intense religious emotion he had passed through between the ages of 16 and 17. But he was at once convinced that it was utterly impossible to him. He attempted to look at it all as an empty custom, having no sort of meaning, like the custom of paying calls. But he felt he could not do that either. Levin found himself, like the majority of his contemporaries, in the vaguest position in regard to religion. Believe he could not, and at the same time he had no firm conviction that it was all wrong, and consequently, not being able to believe in the significance of what he was doing, nor to regard it with indifference as an empty formality, during the whole period of preparing for the sacrament, he was conscious of a feeling of discomfort and shame at doing what he did not himself understand, and what, as an inner voice told him, was therefore false and wrong. During the service, he would first listen to the prayers, trying to attach some meaning to them not discordant with his own views. Then, feeling he could not understand and must condemn them, he tried not to listen to them, but to attend to the thoughts, observations, and memories which floated through his brain with extreme vividness during this idle time of standing in church. He had stood through the litany, the evening service, and the midnight service, and the next day he got up earlier than usual, and without having tea, went at 8 o'clock in the morning to the church for the morning service and the confession. There was no one in the church but a beggar soldier, 2 old women, and the church officials. A young deacon, whose long back showed in 2 distinct halves through his thin undercassock, met him, and at once going to a little table at the wall, read the exhortation. During the reading, especially at the frequent and rapid repetition of the same words, "Lord, have mercy on us," which resounded with an echo, Levin felt that thought was shut and sealed up, and that it must not be touched or stirred now, or confusion would be the result, and so standing behind the deacon, he went on thinking of his own affairs, neither listening nor examining what was said. "It's wonderful what expression there is in her hand," he thought, remembering how they had been sitting the day before at a corner table. They had nothing to talk about, as was almost always the case at this time, and laying her hand on the table, she kept opening it and shutting it, and laughed herself as he watched her action. He remembered how he had kissed it, and then examined the lines on the pink palm. "Have mercy on us again," thought Levin, crossing himself, bowing, and looking at the supple spring of the deacon's back bowing before him. She took my hand and then examined the lines. "You've a splendid hand," she said, and he looked at his own hand and the short hand of the deacon. "Yes, now it will soon be over," he thought. "No, it seems to be beginning again," he thought, listening to the prayers. "No, it's just ending. There he is, bowing down to the ground. That's always the end." The deacon's hand and a plush cuff accepted a 3-ruble note unobtrusively, and the deacon said he would put it down in the register, and his new boots creaking jauntily over the flagstone of the empty church, he went to the altar. A moment later he peeped out thence and beckoned to Levin. Thought, till then locked up, began to stir in Levin's head, but he made haste to drive it away. "It will come right, somehow," he thought, and went towards the altar rails. He went up the steps, and turning to the right, saw the priest. The priest, a little old man with a scanty grizzled beard and weary, good-natured eyes, was standing at the altar rails, turning over the pages of a missal. With a slight bow to Levin, he began immediately reading prayers in the official voice. When he had finished them, he bowed down to the ground and turned, facing Levin. "Christ is present here unseen, receiving your confession," he said, pointing to the crucifix. "Do you believe in all the doctrines of the Holy Apostolic Church?" the priest went on, turning his eyes away from Levin's face and folding his hands under his stole. I doubt everything," said Levin in a voice that jarred on himself, and he ceased speaking. The priest waited a few seconds to see if he would not say more, and closing his eyes, he said quickly and with a proud Vladimirsky accent, "Doubt is natural to the weakness of mankind, but we must pray that God in his mercy will strengthen us. What are your special sins?" he added, without the slightest interval, as though anxious not to waste time. "My chief sin is doubt. I have doubts of everything, and for the most part I am in doubt." "Doubt is natural to the weakness of mankind." The priest repeated the same words. "What do you doubt about principally?" "I doubt of everything. I sometimes even have doubts of the existence of God," Levin could not help saying, and he was horrified at the impropriety of what he was saying. But Levin's words did not, it seemed, make much of an impression on the priest. "What sort of doubt can there be of the existence of God?" he said hurriedly, with a just perceptible smile. Levin did not speak. "What doubt can you have of the Creator when you behold his creation?" the priest went on in the rapid customary jargon. "Who has decked the heavenly firmament with its lights? Who has clothed the earth in its beauty? How explain it without the Creator?" he said, looking inquiringly at Levin. Levin felt that it would be improper to enter upon a metaphysical discussion with the priest, so he said in reply merely what was a direct answer to the question. "I don't know," he said. "You don't know? Then how can you doubt that God created all?" the priest said with good-humored perplexity. "I don't understand it at all," said Levin, blushing and feeling that his words were stupid, and they could not be anything but stupid in such a position. "Pray to God and beseech him. Even the Holy Fathers had doubts and prayed to God to strengthen their faith. The devil has great power. We must resist him. Pray to God, beseech him, pray to God," he repeated hurriedly. The priest paused for some time, as though meditating. "You are about, I hear, to marry the daughter of my parishioner and son in the spirit, Prince Shtcherbatsky," he resumed with a smile. "An excellent young lady." "Yes," answered Levin, blushing for the priest. "What does he want to ask me about this at confession for?" he thought. And as though answering his thought, the priest said to him, "You are about to enter into holy matrimony, and God may bless you with offspring. Well, what sort of bringing up can you give your babes if you do not overcome the temptation of the devil enticing you to infidelity?" he said, with gentle reproachfulness. "If you love your child as a good father, you will not desire only wealth, luxury, and honor for your infant. You will be anxious for his salvation, his spiritual enlightenment in the light of truth. What answer will you make him when the innocent babe asks you, 'Papa, who made all that enchants me in this world, the earth, the waters, the sun, the flowers, the grass?' Can you say to him, 'I don't know'? You cannot but know, since the Lord God in his infinite mercy has revealed it to us. Or your child will ask you, 'What awaits me in the life beyond the tomb?' What will you say to him when you know nothing? How will you answer him? Will you leave him to the allurements of the world and the devil? That's not right, he said, and he stopped, putting his head on one side and looking at Levin with his kindly, gentle eyes. Levin made no answer this time, not because he did not want to enter upon a discussion with the priest, but because, so far, no one had ever asked him such questions, and when his babes did ask him those questions, it would be time enough to think about answering them. You are entering upon a time of life, pursued the priest, when you must choose your path and keep to it. Pray to God that he may in his mercy aid you and have mercy on you, he concluded. Our Lord and God, Jesus Christ, in the abundance and riches of his loving kindness, forgives this child. In finishing the prayers of absolution, the priest blessed him and dismissed him. On getting home that day, Levin had a delightful sense of relief at the awkward position being over and having been got through without his having to tell a lie. Apart from this, there remained a vague memory that what the kind, nice old fellow had said had not been at all so stupid as he had fancied at first, and that there was something in it that must be cleared up. Of course, not now, thought Levin, but some day later on. Levin felt more than ever now that there was something not clear and not clean in his soul, in that, in regard to religion, he was in the same position which he perceived so clearly and disliked in others, and for which he blamed his friends Schwatsky. Levin spent that evening with his betrothed at Dolly's, and was in very high spirits. To explain to Stepan Arkadyevitch the state of excitement in which he found himself, he said that he was happy like a dog being trained to jump through a hoop, who, having at last caught the idea and done what was required of him, whines and wags his tails and jumps up to the tables and the windows in its delight. Chapter 2. On the day of the wedding, according to the Russian custom, the princess and Darya Alexandrovna insisted on strictly keeping all the customs. Levin did not see his betrothed, and dined at his hotel with 3 bachelor friends, casually brought together at his rooms. These were Sergei Ivanovitch Karavasov, a university friend, now professor of natural science, whom Levin had met in the street and insisted on taking home with him, and Chirikov, his best man, a Moscow conciliation board judge, Levin's companion in his bear hunts. The dinner was a very merry one. Sergei Ivanovitch was in his happiest mood and much amused by Karavasov's originality. Karavasov, feeling his originality was appreciated and understood, made the most of it. Chirikov always gave a lively and good-humored support to conversation of any sort. "See now," said Karavasov, drawing his words from a habit acquired in his lecture room, "what a capable fellow was our friend Konstantin Dmitrovitch. I'm not speaking of present company, for he's absent. At the time he left the university, he was fond of science, took an interest in humanity. Now 1/2 of his abilities is devoted to deceiving himself, and the other to justifying the deceit." "A more determined enemy of matrimony than you I never saw," said Sergei Ivanovitch. "Oh, no, I'm not an enemy of matrimony. I'm in favor of division of labor. People who can do nothing else ought to rear people while the rest work for their happiness and enlightenment. That's how I look at it. To muddle up 2 trades is the error of the amateur. I'm not one of their number." How happy I shall be when I hear that you're in love, said Levin. Please invite me to the wedding. I'm in love now. Yes, with a cuttlefish. You know, Levin turned to his brother, Mihail Sergeyenovitch is writing a work on the digestive organs of the... Now, make a muddle of it. It doesn't matter what it's about. The fact is, I certainly do love cuttlefish. But that's no hindrance to you loving a wife. The cuttlefish is no hindrance. The wife is the hindrance. Why? Oh, you'll see. You care about farming, hunting. Well, you better look out. Arhip was here today. He said there were a lot of elks in Prudno and 2 bears, said Cherikov. Well, you must go and get them without me. Ah, that's the truth, said Sergei Ivanovitch, and you may say goodbye to bear hunting for the future. Your wife won't allow it. Levin smiled. The picture of his wife not letting him go was so pleasant that he was ready to renounce the delights of looking upon bears forever. Still, it's a pity they should get those 2 bears without you. Do you remember last time at Apollovo? That was a delightful hunt, said Cherikov. Levin had not the heart to disillusion him of the notion that there could be something delightful apart from her. So he said nothing. There is some sense in this custom of saying goodbye to bachelor life, said Sergei Ivanovitch. However happy you may be, you must regret your freedom. And confess there is a feeling that you want to jump out of the window, like Gogol's bridegroom? Of course there is, but it isn't confessed, said Karavasov, as he broke into loud laughter. Oh, well, the window's open. Let's start off this instant, Tver. There's a big she-bear. One can go right up to the lair. Seriously, let's go by the 5 o'clock. And here let them do what they like, said Cherikov, smiling. Well now, on my honor, said Levin, smiling, I can't find in my heart that feeling of regret for my freedom. Yes, there's such a chaos in your heart right now that you can't find anything there, said Karavasov. Wait a bit. When you set it to right a little, you'll find it. No, if so, I should have felt a little, apart from my feeling, he could not say love before them, and happiness, a certain regret at losing my freedom. On the contrary, I am glad at the very loss of my freedom. Awful. It's a hopeless case, said Karavasov. Well, let's drink to his recovery, or wish the 100th part of his dreams may be realized, and that would be happiness such as never has been seen on earth. Soon after dinner the guest went away to be in time to be dressed for the wedding. When he was left alone and recalled the conversation of these bachelor friends, Levin asked himself, had he in his heart that regret for his freedom of which they had spoken? He smiled at the question. Freedom. What is freedom for? Happiness is only in loving and wishing her wishes, thinking her thoughts, that is to say, not freedom at all. There's happiness. But do I know her ideas, her wishes, her feelings? Some voice suddenly whispered to him. The smile died away from his face, and he grew thoughtful. And suddenly a strange feeling came upon him. There came over him a dread and doubt of everything. What if she does not love me? What if she's marrying me simply to be married? What if she doesn't see herself what she's doing? He asked himself. She may come to her senses, and only when she is being married realize that She does not and cannot love me. And strange, most evil thoughts of her began to come to him. He was jealous of Vronsky, as he had been a year ago, as though the evening he had seen her with Vronsky had been yesterday. He suspected she had not told him everything. He jumped up quickly. "No, this can't go on," he said to himself in despair. "I'll go to her. I'll ask her. I'll say for the last time, we are free. Hadn't we better stay so? Anything is better than endless misery, disgrace, unfaithfulness." With despair in his heart and bitter anger against all men, against himself, against her, he went out of the hotel and drove to her house. He found her in one of the back rooms. She was sitting on a chest and making some arrangements with her maid, sorting over heaps of dresses of different colors, spread on the backs of chairs and on the floor. "Ah," she cried, seeing him, beaming with delight. "Kostya, Konstantin Dmitrovitch." These latter days she used these names almost alternately. "I didn't expect you. I'm going through my wardrobe to see what's for whom." "Oh, that's very nice," he said gloomily, looking at the maid. "You can go, Dunyasha. I'll call you presently," said Kitty. "Kostya, what's the matter?" she asked, definitely adopting this familiar name as soon as the maid had gone out. She noticed his strange face, agitated and gloomy, and a panic came over her. "Kitty, I'm in torture. I can't suffer alone," he said with despair in his voice, standing before her and looking imploringly into her eyes. He saw already from her loving, truthful face that nothing could come of what he had meant to say, and yet he wanted her to reassure him herself. "I've come to say that there's still time. This can all be stopped and set right." "What? I don't understand. What is the matter?" What I have said 1,000 times over, and can't help thinking that I'm not worthy of you. You couldn't consent to marry me. Think a little. You've made a mistake. Think it over thoroughly. You can't love me. If you'd better say so," he said, not looking at her. "I shall be wretched. Let people say what they like. Anything's better than misery. Far better now, while there's still time." "I don't understand," she answered, panic-stricken. "You mean you want to give it up? You don't want it?" "Yes, if you don't love me." "You're out of your mind," she cried, turning crimson with vexation. But his face was so piteous that she restrained her vexation, and flinging some clothes off an armchair, she sat down beside him. "What are you thinking? Tell me all." "I am thinking you can't love me. What can you love me for?" "My God, what can I do?" she said, and burst into tears. "Oh, what have I done?" he cried, and kneeling before her, he fell to kissing her hands. When the princess came into the room 5 minutes later, she found them completely reconciled. Kitty had not simply reassured him that she loved him, but had gone so far, in answer to his question, what she loved him for, as to explain what for. She told him that she loved him because she understood him completely, because she knew what he would like, and because everything he liked was good. And this seemed to him perfectly clear. When the princess came to them, they were sitting side by side on the chest, sorting the dresses and disputing over Kitty's wanting to give Dunyasha the brown dress she had been wearing when Levin proposed to her, while he insisted that that dress must never be given away, but Dunyasha must have the blue one. "How is it that you don't see? She's a brunette. It won't suit her. I've worked it all out." Hearing why he had come, the princess was half humorously, half seriously angry with him, and sent him home to dress and not to hinder Kitty's hairdressing, as Charles the hairdresser was just coming. As it is, she's been eating nothing lately and is losing her looks, and then you come and upset her with your nonsense, she said to him. Get along with you, my dear. Levin, guilty and shamefaced, but pacified, went back to his hotel. His brother, Darya Alexandrovna, and Stepan Arkadyevitch, all in full dress, were waiting for him to bless him with the holy picture. There was no time to lose. Darya Alexandrovna had to drive home again to fetch her curled and pomaded son, who was to carry the holy pictures after the bride. Then a carriage had to be sent for the best man, and another that would take Sergei Ivanovitch away would have to be sent back. Altogether, there were a great many complicated matters to be considered and arranged. One thing was unmistakable. There must be no delay, as it was already 6:30. Nothing special happened at the ceremony of benediction with the holy picture. Stepan Arkadyevitch stood in a comically solemn pose beside his wife, took the holy picture, and telling Levin to bow down to the ground, he blessed him with his kindly, ironical smile, and kissed him 3 times. Darya Alexandrovna did the same, and immediately was in a hurry to get off, and again plunged into the intricate question of the destination of the various carriages. Come, I'll tell you how we'll manage. You'll drive in our carriage to fetch him, and Sergei Ivanovitch, if he'll be so good, will drive there and then send his carriage. Of course, I shall be delighted. We'll come on directly with him. Are your things sent off? Said Stepan Arkadyevitch. Yes, answered Levin, and he told Guzma to put out his clothes for him to dress. Chapter 3. A crowd of people, principally women, was thronging around the church lighted up for the wedding. Those who had not succeeded in getting into the main entrance were crowding about the windows, pushing, wrangling, and peeping through the gratings. More than 20 carriages had already been drawn up in ranks along the street by the police. A police officer, regardless of the frost, stood at the entrance, gorgeous in his uniform. More carriages were continually driving up, and ladies wearing flowers and carrying their trains, and men taking off their helmets or black hats kept walking into the church. Inside the church both lustres were already lighted, and all the candles before the holy pictures. The gilt on the red ground of the holy picture stand, and the gilt relief on the pictures, and the silver of the lustres and the candlesticks, and the stones of the floor, and the rugs, and the banners above in the choir, and the steps of the altar, and the old blackened books, and the cassocks and surplices, all were flooded with light. On the right side of the warm church, in the crowd of frock coats and white ties, uniforms and broadcloths, velvet, satin, hair and flowers, bare shoulders and arms, and long gloves, there were discreet but lively conversations that echoed strangely in the high cupola. Every time there was heard the creak of the open door, the conversation in the crowd died away, and everybody looked round, expecting to see the bride and bridegroom come in. But the door had opened more than 10 times, and each time it was either a belated guest or guest who joined the circle of the invited on the right, or a spectator who had eluded or softened the police officer and went to join the crowd of outsiders on the left. Both the guest and the outside public had by now passed through all phases of anticipation. At first they imagined that the bride and bridegroom would arrive immediately, and attached no importance at all to their being late. Then they began to look around more and more often towards the door, and to talk of whether anything could have happened. Then the long delay began to be positively discomforting, and relations and guests tried to look as if they were not thinking of the bridegroom, but were engrossed in conversation. The head deacon, as though to remind them of the value of his time, coughed impatiently, making the window panes quiver in their frames. In the choir, the bored choristers could be heard trying their voices. The priest was continually sending first the beadle, then the deacon, to find out whether the bridegroom had not come. More and more often he went himself, in a lilac vestment with an embroidered sash, to the side door, expecting to see the bridegroom. At last one of the ladies, glancing at her watch, said, "It really is strange, though," and all the guests became uneasy, and began loudly expressing their wonder and dissatisfaction. One of the bridegroom's best men went to find out what had happened. Kitty, meanwhile, had long ago been quite ready, and in her white dress and long veil and wreath of orange blossoms, she was standing in the drawing-room of the Shtcherbatskys' house with her sister, Madame Lvova, who was her bridal mother. She was looking out of the window, and had been over half an hour anxiously expecting to hear from the best man that her bridegroom was at the church. Levin, meanwhile, in his trousers, but without his coat and waistcoat, was walking to and fro in his room at the hotel, continually putting his head out of the door and looking up and down the corridor. But in the corridor there was no sign of the person he was looking for, and he came back in despair and frantically waving his hands addressed Stepan Arkadyevitch, who was smoking serenely. "Was ever a man in such a fearful fool's position?" he said. "Yes, it is stupid," Stepan Arkadyevitch assented, smiling soothingly. "But don't worry, it'll be brought directly." "No, what is to be done?" said Levin with smothered fury. "And these fools of open waistcoats, out of the question," he said, looking at the crumpled front of his shirt. "And what if the things had been taken to the railway station already?" he roared in desperation. "Then you must put on mine." "I ought to have done it long ago, if at all." "It's not nice to look ridiculous. Just wait a bit, it will come round." The point was that when Levin asked for his evening suit, Kozma, his old servant, had brought him the coat, waistcoat, and everything that was wanted. "But the shirt!" cried Levin. "You've got a shirt on," Kozma answered with a placid smile. Kozma had not thought of leaving out a clean shirt, and on receiving instructions to pack up everything and send it around to the Shtcherbatskys' house, from which the young people were to set out the same evening, he had done so, packing everything but the dress shirt. The shirt worn since the morning was crumpled and out of the question with the fashionable open waistcoat. It was a long way to send to the Shtcherbatskys. They sent out to buy a shirt. The servant came back. Everything was shut up. It was Sunday. They sent to Stepan Arkadyevitch's and brought a shirt. It was impossibly wide and short. They sent finally to the Shtcherbatskys to unpack the things. The bridegroom was expected at the church, while he was pacing up and down his room like a wild beast in a cage, peeping out into the corridor, and with horror and despair recalling what absurd things he had said to Kitty, and what she might be thinking now. At last the guilty Kozma flew panting into the room with the shirt. "Only just in time. They were just lifting it into the van," said Kozma. 3 minutes later, Levin ran full speed into the corridor, not looking at his watch for fear of aggravating his sufferings. "You won't help matters like this," said Stepan Arkadyevitch with a smile, hurrying with more deliberation after him. "It will come round, I tell you."